Yes, we're back with another episode, another rider. Today we have an Italian man from Naples, and he's been educating us about the incentive the Italian government has been giving us giving his Italians around the world to come back and study in the academics. We're rolling into that, and we're going to see where their conversation takes us. But before we get into that, do not forget to like, subscribe, and press that share button. So nice to have you here today, Emanuela.
Hi man, how's it going?
Okay, that's good. So what's your profession?
So I'm an academic, I teach at university, I'm a researcher, and I'm at the London School of Economics.
And what do you research?
European political economy.
Ah. So what made you want to go into that industry?
Always been interested in research and university publication, and I've always wanted to be an expert in political economy, so the best way for me was to do a PhD. So I did that, and into the academic world pretty much, and I stayed in London for quite a while. So I was wondering, and I was looking for ways to go back to Italy, and I got into this scheme that if you want we can talk about.
Yep, go on there, tell us about the scheme.
So basically this is something pretty new, and I think it was created in 2018, and it's really to attract academics, Italian academics working around the world, because like all the best Italian academics are either in the US or in the UK, some of them also in Germany. They want to attract them back to Italy, and they basically give 90% tax relief if you decide to go back to Italy, and if you did research or university teaching for more than 3 years abroad. And yeah, it's a very attractive scheme. And on top of that, if you buy a house, this scheme not only lasts for six years as a basis, but like if you buy a house, you basically get 11 years of tax relief, which is almost like getting a before tax salary in full.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you said you were talking about it, if you have children.
Yeah, basically, this is like on top of what you get if you already go back. So basically, if you go back and if you buy a house, and on top of that you also make children, you have an additional 2 years per child, up until 2 children. And yeah, so basically you will get tax relief for 15 years, which is a lot.
I can believe it. Mm-hmm. So your job, what does it entail? What's a typical day like for you?
Going to the office, doing research, so working with my data, working with...
What kind of data?
I look at European trade policy in the Mediterranean, and especially I'm interested in Mediterranean countries, southern Mediterranean countries. And so like right now my case study is Maghreb, so I'm looking at Morocco, Tunisia and Algeria, and I'm seeing how trade and investments have shifted since the war in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. The impact has been quite big, especially when looking at Algeria. Mm-hmm. The thing is, we don't have much data available in terms of like aggregate data. We know a lot about the EU. We don't know a lot about how much these countries trade and receive investments from other countries, especially from China, Turkey, and Gulf countries. So what I'm trying to create is a database to see whether the EU is still like the main economic partner of this country. And yeah, I'm trying to create another data set and to see whether this is still the case. So yeah, pretty much I go into the office, I work on my data, I read things, then 2 days a week I need to teach undergrads and postgrad students, and I teach European political economy. I have a course on European political economy and a course on monetary integration. Yeah, pretty much that. Okay. So research and teaching, I would say.
With your data,
yeah,
do you present it to the British government, or what happens?
I mainly work with the European Commission and the Italian government, but we do have a lot of engagement with the British government, with the Bank of England and so on, but it's not me. I mean, I have a lot of colleagues doing that, but because of the type of research I do, Brussels and Rome.
So what comes to mind is that a British university is paying you to do research for other countries.
It's not really the case.
Go on.
I think it's basically what I'm doing is research that it's interesting for everyone, including the British and Great Britain and British foreign policy and trade policy. Because if I make findings about these countries, I'm also making findings that can be relevant to other countries other than EU countries themselves. And you need to think about another thing. When I got into research, the UK was still in the EU. So, like, as a matter of fact, I was doing a research that was very interesting also the UK, because I was doing like a research on EU trade policy and investment policy.
Even so, even if we weren't in the EU, it'd be very vital for the United Kingdom to understand what impact they're having on their neighbours with their own policies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I can see that.
I think it's important to understand what is going on, especially when you have new actors coming in and investing and trading, and when we don't have like good, not only aggregate but also disaggregated data. Because like what I'm trying to do is also to see at single regions and to put them all together to see whether they have different results. So yeah, it's very important to understand what is going on with your neighbors and decide about your foreign and trade policy accordingly and investment policy accordingly.
How was the lockdown? How was Brexit? How did that affect the economy on your statistics?
Massively, in my opinion. I think
negative, positive.
Yeah, like in a negative way. So like the let me put it this way: the easy talk is the following. The easy talk is about London has lost plenty of professionals and researchers coming from the EU, and most of like the big companies, the big four, investment banking, and as well as the big universities which means research impact and so on, we're relying on EU people, and it's becoming increasingly even more difficult to get a visa now. Like they're trying to fix this issue by allowing people to get the visa easier if you're a professional, if you're coming from certain university backgrounds and so on. But as a matter of fact, it has become more difficult to get a visa. So a lot of people are not going to the UK anymore. Like they're going somewhere else. A lot of people had to return to their countries after Brexit because they were not part of the settlement scheme, for example. So this is the easy part. So like the UK has and when I say the UK, unfortunately, like I'm talking of London. London has lost a lot of these professionals
I understand
and researchers. Having said that, like there's another part which is about a more complex regulatory side of it. The UK all in a sudden realized that like going out of the EU would mean rewriting all the regulations on labor regulations, trade regulations, and so on, which were EU regulations until 2019, and it's we're still struggling to do so, but we're reaching a point where this is being solved. Let's put it this way, especially when we think of Northern Ireland. But other than that, I think we didn't have like that huge negative impact that a lot of people were expecting, but we did have like big negative impact in certain issues.
So I take it you've told the British government's aware of this from your statistics. What was do you know what their attitude was?
Well, at the beginning, like at the very beginning, it was like there was an attempt to do an hard policy in terms of issuing visa to EU people. They realized that was having a negative impact, especially for the city, and so they're trying to make it easier for EU people to get a visa. And what I've done now is basically they've created a list of universities, and if you come from those universities, you can get into the UK job market, regardless whether it's academia or investment banking or whatever, with this special visa, which is called high-ranked university kind of visa. It's a special visa for people coming from a certain university background. So I think
So that's going to be like the prestige, the Oxford, the Cambridge, the LSEs, the UCLs.
or like other American or German, French universities. So like.
So, but it's not going to be like the South Banks, the I don't know, the Portsmouth or whatever.
No, not really. So that's why I'm saying that they're still struggling, because there was a lot of professionals that were not educated from these universities that basically were like a good match for certain kind of office jobs, and it's increasingly becoming more difficult to issue visas to these people, and I think they're working on that. Let's put it this way. This is not really my area of expertise, so like
yeah, okay, I understand. What have you learned about living in England that you wish you knew when you had started?
You want the fun part of it, or you want
Both.
Well, one thing is that at the beginning you think it's all about following the rules, and then realize after a while that it's not really about following the rules, because like at the beginning, when you come from a southern Mediterranean country, or like a country from the south like myself, you say, oh, everything works here. Then when you settle and you see how things work in Northern Europe, and you know, like where I consider the UK as part of the Northern Europe, you realize that a lot of things don't work here. And it might be biased as a claim, because like I'm specifically talking of London. That's my only experience of the UK. I visited other parts of the UK, but I mainly lived in London. So one thing that I wished I knew was that London is closer to, you know, like the city where I come from, which is Naples, than I thought. When I think of, you know, like crime, and when I think of you know, like safety at night and these kind of things.
So have you ever experienced crime in London?
Oh yeah, I was victim of multiple thefts.
Really? In what sense? What, you was mugged?
Mugged.
Really? What happened?
Well, someone just like pointed a knife at me and said, "Give me your bag with everything inside," and I lost all of my laptop with my data and like my badges for the EU Parliament and Commission. So like I had to go through all the security things again. It was a mess. Then my passport was.
Was it just you and that person?
Pardon?
Where were you? Was it just you and the
Hold on.
person?
No, like I was walking in a secondary street nearby Holborn, and yeah, this person came. It was like literally 15 seconds. I didn't even try to do anything. Like I gave him the bag and that's it. He had a knife, so.
Oh, what, he just took out to show you, or
Yeah.
he put it up against you?
No. He just showed it to me.
Okay.
So that's one thing. The other, but then speaking of fun things, I would say the one thing I wanted to, I wish I knew before, was, you know, like the idea of having fun in London and the UK in general, which is mainly based on alcohol. So yeah, I had to change my lifestyle a little bit in terms of that, but that's part of the culture. I liked it now, but you do need to get used to it, because like I used to drink a lot of wine while eating.
Yeah.
But, you know,
So
like,
that
this is a
keeps you
whole other thing.
that keeps you sober. The
Yeah.
food keeps you sober.
And this is a whole other level. So.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, really? And now you drink beer?
Beer, gin tonic a lot. I love gin tonic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's changed. It's made you more of an alcoholic.
I wouldn't say I'm an alcoholic, but yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's definitely drinking more than I used to do. Yeah.
Okay.
But once you get used to it, you know, you can have a couple of gin tonics and you don't even realize it. It's just part of your routine.
Mm-hmm.
You finish working, you go for a beer, or you finish working, you go for a gin tonic. That's part of London life, I would say.
What would be your advice to someone who's gonna come from Naples, Italy, and wants to come to England? What advice would you give them?
I think they like it's quite a shock. It's quite a change in a sense that it's not like going to another Mediterranean country. It's you're going to the north, so you need to get used to the weather. You need to get used to a completely different kind of lifestyle. As I was saying, like whilst it is true that like a lot of rules are not followed, you still need to comply with the policy, which is still something that we don't really like in the south, in the sense that policy exists, rules exist, but they're flexible in a way. Here, even for a stupid thing, there's a policy. So like they need to understand how these little things work, understand how the bureaucratic world and how the bureaucratic work looks like in England. Once they get used to with all these things, then they will like it. And apart from that, like I always think that like living in London is a great experience. It's one of the best cities in the world. It offers everything. You can go and have food, any kind of nationality, and you know, like one day you wanna eat Vietnamese, the other day you wanna eat Korean, the other day you wanna eat Italian, and you have like high quality food and high quality restaurants throughout the city. So like it's really a great experience, and that would be. But my recommendation would be you need to be ready for quite of a cultural shock. That's the big thing. I would say.
Okay, I hear you. What does the future hold for you?
Well, hopefully, in a couple of years I will become. Well, hopefully in a couple of years I'll become associate professor. 2-3 years, potentially I'll go back to Italy, and hopefully also taking advantage of this scheme I was talking about earlier.
I have a theory, but regardless of Brexit, the British government will want to be part of Europe again, and what they do, instead of making it saying we're going back into Europe, they just sort out the paperwork, so it's more or less the same as it was before Brexit, but we're still kind of separate. Do you, based on your studies, with your data, your research, do you think that's likely?
It is already happening. As a matter of fact, it's exactly like this. They've realized they're not able to, create a new, a lot of different fields of policy from scratch that were basically based on the EU policy, a common policy. And so what they're doing is basically using the same grounds for their new
policies.
Independent policies.
Yes.
And I think I will go even further. I think it's that what happens eventually, there's going to be integration based on policy sectors. The UK is going to realize, and is realizing already with what is happening with Russia, that it needs allies in Europe, and it's not only about NATO, but they need a common defense policy, common defense and foreign policy. So what is going to happen is that they're probably going to create a common framework with other European countries. So you're going to be basically have the same scheme of the euro. So you have an opt-in, opt-out kind of framework where you have some European countries that want opt-in and some other European countries who want to opt-out. And you also have external countries such as Norway who can opt-in or opt-out. So in a way, I would see the role of the UK as European as it was before. Difference that now is not formally part of the EU and it doesn't have member of parliaments anymore in Brussels. But yeah, I would 100% agree. As a matter of fact, it's already what it's happening.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for that, and we wish you well.
Thank you very much, man.
Okay. We hope that episode enhanced your life. We post an interview every day as well as vlogging on our social media channels. Don't forget to subscribe to get our latest episode.